Welcome to another video in our series on crop insurance for specialty crop growers. Today we'll be talking about crop insurance options for vegetable, fruit, and nut crops. Our first crop insurance option we'll be talking about is multi-peril crop insurance, or MPCI. And this is subsidized by the USDA Risk Management Agency, and it protects against loss due to natural perils, living threats, and losses in revenue. Some of the risks and threats that might be covered by MPCI or some of the other policies and programs we'll be talking about include fire, flood, tornado, and even plant disease or insect infestation if proper control measures were taken and they were still not enough. Multi-peril crop insurance coverage varies by crop and by county, and it's based on demand, and it must be requested by enough growers before the policy is created for that crop and county. So if you and some of your fellow growers in your county are growing a very similar crop, but there's no multi-peril crop insurance policy for that crop in your county, if y'all will request it to the RMA for several years, the policy may be created. And if you grow more than one crop, you'll need separate policies for each crop. So if you're growing tomatoes and peppers, you would need separate policies for each of those. So what may be covered in some Kentucky counties? So I've made a list of some vegetable, fruit, and nut crops that a lot of our specialty crop growers in Kentucky are growing. And some of these may be covered in a few counties, but you'll need to check with the crop insurance agent to make sure. So some of the vegetable crops include cabbage, cucumbers, sweet corn, onions, peppers, potatoes, pumpkins, sweet potatoes, and tomatoes. Some of the fruit might include apples, apricots, blueberries, caneberries, cherries, figs, grapes, peaches, pears, and strawberries. And some of the nuts might include almonds, macadamias, pecans, pistachios, and walnuts. So our next type of crop insurance policy is whole farm revenue protection. So this ensures revenue based on past tax documents instead of yield history like the MPCI. And it determines loss based on a 5-year average. If you're a new grower, 3 years is acceptable, but they do like the 5-year past tax documents. And with the whole farm revenue protection, individual commodity losses are not considered. It's the overall farm revenue losses. So if you had a bad year for peppers, but a great year for pumpkins, your revenue may be about the same or even higher. So even though you had a loss in peppers, your overall revenue did not see a loss. So this is great for diverse operations that are growing crops without specific coverage, or crops that are just really diversified and it's easier to just lump the whole revenue together. It's worth mentioning that the value-added products and some post-harvest activities such as washing can also be included in revenue. And for diverse operations with 3 or more different crops, they can buy into a larger coverage of either 80 or 85% coverage. So that's great for smaller farms that are very diversified. And the deadline to apply for the whole farm revenue protection is usually March 15th. There are a few exceptions depending on how you file your taxes. So if MPCI and whole farm are not for you, there is also the option of the Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance Program, or NAP, and this is administered by the FSA. and it's financial assistance to growers of any crop with no available crop insurance. So if your crop has MPCI coverage in your county, then you would have to go with that instead of applying for the NAP. But with a lot of specialty crops, you'll probably apply for the NAP instead of the MPCI. And this protects against losses caused by damaging weather events, natural events, and any problems that arise from those events. NAP does not cover you for maybe changes in price or market price. So your loss from any of those events must exceed 50% of your expected production. And each crop is covered under its own separate plan with its own premium, much like MPCI. So here's the NAP coverage application dates. So these are for crops that will be sold next year in 2022. So if you're growing strawberries that you plan to sell next spring, you would have needed to apply by September 1st of this year, 2021. If you were growing most perennial fruit and nut crops for sale in 2022, you would need to apply by November 20th of 2021. So those two crop groups have already passed, but if you're growing most vegetable crops and then annual fruit crops, those are still open, so you can apply up until March 15th of 2022. And our last crop insurance program we'll be talking about is the Tree Assistance Program, or TAP. This is also administered by the FSA, and it's available to nursery tree growers and orchardists. And this is financial assistance to replant or rehabilitate trees, bushes, and vines that are damaged by natural disaster or a disease, maybe a large disease spread, not just one tree had a specific disease. This is more large scale because more than 15% mortality loss per stand is required for each disaster event or disease occurrence. And the types of things that are covered are ornamental, fruit, nut, and Christmas trees, but this excludes timber trees. And so if you're growing fruit or nut trees to sell, or you're growing the trees to sell the fruit or the nuts, you would be covered by the TAP. And something interesting about this program is that you only apply after the disaster. So this is not something you have to apply for every year in anticipation. You only apply after you've experienced loss or a disaster. But it's something to keep in mind in case that ever comes up, or a big storm comes through and takes out a lot of your trees. So this is something to think about if you had any damage or destruction caused by the storms or tornadoes we've experienced in Kentucky recently. This would be for trees that you're selling their fruit or nuts, not trees that are just planted in your yard. So if you know anyone that's been damaged by the storms, tell them about this program if they've got some fruit or nut crops that were affected. I'd also like to let everyone know about our upcoming webinars. Our live webinars are the second Tuesday of every month at 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern. And our next one in January will be a Q&A with insurance agents. We'd like to say a thank you to the Southern Risk Management Education Center and the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture for supporting this video and our webinar series. Thanks for watching.